This podcast is sponsored by Milliman. As one of the world's largest actuarial and consulting firms, Milliman's work is vital to solving the challenges faced by our clients, society, and the world. Through actuarial, risk management, and related technology and data solutions, we help companies navigate the complex health, finance, and insurance landscape. Because the future demands a different kind of thinking from a different kind of company. To learn more, visit milliman.com.
Hello, and welcome to the first edition of a new podcast series from the Actuary, produced on behalf of the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries, the IFOA. I'm Jon Watkins, a financial journalist and your host for this podcast series. In this exciting new digital format for IFOA members, I'll be talking to three actuaries about their work, their world, and their interests. First, we'll meet in real life the person featured in the main interview of the recent issue of the Actuary magazine. Then we'll talk to a member who's been involved in an area of policy or research work. And then we'll introduce a fellow member, a working actuary, to find out who they are, what they do, and what led them into this profession. Let's get going and meet our first guest then, Kartina Tahir Thomson. She's an experienced risk actuary and the new president of the IFOA, and she was recently interviewed in the Actuary's New Look September-October issue. Welcome to our podcast and thanks for taking part. The world is becoming increasingly digital and there seem to be so many more channels to reach audiences today. Have you done much in the way of podcasts and public speaking in the past? Is it something you expect to be doing a lot more of as president of the IFOA, and do you feel comfortable doing this sort of thing?
So I've always done some public speaking, certainly one or two podcasts before. I have to admit it doesn't come naturally to me, but I love the fact that, you know, I have the opportunity to do this, and this role certainly as, you know, president of the IFOA and the ambassadorial role of the president. I am going to do quite a lot of this and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, so many more channels mean more ways to reach our audiences and our members. And that can only be a good thing, I guess. For the March edition of The Actuary, you took part in a discussion about what it's like being a woman in the profession. So far, what's it like being a woman president of the IFOA, the sixth in its history? And do you feel that can inspire more women in their progression?
I think it's great that I'm not the first, I'm not the second, I'm actually the sixth. So it shows that membership is bought into this agenda and very open to the diversity of the profession. So I think it's great. And the fact that, you know, I am actually the first to follow on from another woman is also a progression as well in this area. But for me, it's about diversity of thought. It's not just about gender. It's about, diversity of thinking and having that breadth of opinions that we can get richness of discussion from. And in terms of getting people to, inspire people, absolutely. And I hope it does inspire people to do more for the profession, get involved, and link up with each other.
You touched there on the fact that you are the sixth female president of the IFOA, and that you hope that'll inspire other people. And you talked about the need for more diverse thinking overall. But what are the things that can help the profession become increasingly diverse as we move forward?
Showing the art of what's possible is important. I think role modeling is important in this sense. So if people can't see what is possible and what is out there, it probably can't be inspired to do so and to get involved. So I think it's important to role model, what is possible, the experiences that people have, where they've been, and what the next generation of actuaries can do in this aspect. So what that means is that we need to kind of support people in mentoring, showcasing, raising awareness, all of those things that I'd like to do a bit more of.
Yeah, brilliant. And on the subject of the things you'd like to do more of, in your recent magazine interview, you talked about your 3 core aims for your tenure as president: vision, value, and engagement. If you had to pick one, what would be your core priority for the year ahead, and why?
John, I can't pick one. So it's not fair for me to kind of pick one, because it's about existing members and future members. So for existing members, it's about the value and the empowerment and also the engagement piece. But for the future and the next generation of actuaries, it's about the vision. It's where we want to support and where we want to play in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, 50 years' time. And that's important because it's about the sustainability of the profession. So that's about the future. But currently, for current members, I'd like us to think about the value that we give to members. And it's very important that members are feeling connected, members are valued in our profession. So some context, we have about 4,000 volunteers at any one time. That's around 12 to 13%, and that's quite high for a membership organization. So we don't say thank you enough. When we translate that number into FTE, it's significant, it's substantial. So we need to say thank you, we need to listen, and we need to empower our volunteers to act on behalf of the profession.
Yeah, and you mentioned there about showcasing and sort of demonstrating the power of the role and the impact. You're also on the record as saying you'd like the actuarial community to share stories celebrating what it means to be an actuary. What does it mean to be an actuary, and why is that storytelling so important?
The storytelling is important because it inspires people. It inspires people to do what they want to do. And it's a great profession to be in. The skill set that we get from being in the profession is so diverse. It's very transferable, and it enables our members to do what they want. So if they want to stay in the traditional domain, so, insurance, general insurance, life insurance, pensions, that's great. And they can innovate in that area. But if they want to do something completely different, people want to do things in food security, for example. Of course, now more and more people are doing things in sustainability. They can do that as well, because the skill set is there to support members to do that. And when you ask me about what it means to be an actuary, it's about being valued, right? It's about having a rich and fulfilling career. And I love, meeting stakeholders, meeting regulators, meeting clients, and they really value the things that we say.
Yeah, and I mean, despite all of that, actuaries still often have to explain what it is that they do. Do you think there will come a time when they don't have to do that anymore, when the profile has been raised to such an extent, I guess, that it's sort of common knowledge, or everybody understands that? And what, in addition to that storytelling that you talked about, needs to happen to help us reach that stage?
John, I mean, I hope that, there will be a time when one day people don't say, what's that? Or, confusing with actress rather than actuary. I hope that we get to that, right? But it's about awareness, raising awareness. And I think it needs to start from school engagement. It still needs to start earlier. So at the moment, we probably go in at university stage, which I think if you compare to other profession, like, medical profession, legal profession, they get in at reception age. So very, very at the start of school. So we need to get in there, get engaged, inspire those students to want to get into the profession.
I just want to sort of wrap by touching on a few more personal elements, understanding a little bit more about you, Kartina, if that's okay, rather than the profession directly. In our September-October magazine, you're quoted as saying, no matter what you do, you are an inspiration to someone. So I guess the obvious question is, who has inspired you the most in your life, and how?
It might be cheesy, but it's my mother. I don't think I personally can do what she has done in her life. You know, she used to be a full-time teacher, and in a culture where, you know, as a woman, she's still in charge of the household, and at home and with children, 3 children. And that's amazing, and managed to inspire her kids to do good for society. So cheesy, but she is my inspiration.
Inspirational, absolutely. And finally, in your spare time, you're a fan of scuba diving, I understand. Where's the best place that you've done that, and where in the world would you like to go next that you haven't?
So the best place I've done is Sipadan, actually, which is in Borneo, which is incidentally where I used to grow up. And it's amazing. Unfortunately, I twisted my ankle when I dived there last year, but that's another story. But I would love to go to Raja Ampat, which is in Indonesia. And I'm hoping to do that probably after the presidential term.
Absolutely. Well, there's lots to crack on with before then, it seems. So thank you for sharing some insights into what those things are. Kartina, thanks so much for taking part in our podcast and for sharing your thoughts on the profession and how you hope it will evolve from here.
Thanks, John.
Don't forget to read the insightful interview with Kartina in the September-October issue of the Actuary magazine, or online at theactuary.com. For our next segment, I'm going to be speaking to Polly Cripps, who is a pensions actuary at Aon and an IFOA member. Polly sits on the IFOA Pensions Gap Working Party, which has recently released some important research on how certain life decisions, such as going part-time, getting married, having children, can affect people's pension pots. Called How Much Could You Lose?, the research paper explores how these milestones could end up shrinking people's pension savings by hundreds of thousands of pounds, and we're going to discuss that a little bit more now. Polly, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, John. Good to speak to you.
Yeah, you too. Tell us a bit more about the new IFOA report, How Much Could You Lose, and exactly what it's about.
So we wanted to, as a group, use our actuarial skills to create some attention-grabbing headlines that would make sense to ordinary person on the street that doesn't work in pensions. So there's a lot of common times in people's lives where they face, such as you just mentioned, so getting married, having kids, getting divorced, things like that, where pensions often aren't the main thing on people's minds. But if they were, the financial implications of not thinking about pensions can just be massive. And so we wanted to draw out some numbers of that on the report, and then we go on to give some recommendations about what individuals can do, but also, more importantly, what employers and the government can do to help people not to have regrets about their pension in later life.
So how long has this research been in the making, and how did you go about conducting it?
So the group of us have been speaking regularly for over a year. We're all volunteering alongside our day jobs and other life commitments. So, we don't get the chance to probably work as quickly as we might do if it was the day job. But really, we had an agreement early on, sort of over a year ago, that we wanted to use our skills to benefit the general public and particularly disadvantaged groups that might not be thinking about pensions. And then we're also really conscious that as an industry and as a group, sometimes it can be a bit of an echo chamber. So we really wanted to think about how we could get the message out wider. And so we've been then working with the media group at the Institute of Actuaries, and they've been really helpful about getting our research into sort of an ordinary pet press. And the reports had coverage in several publications, including the Daily Mirror and the ST Advisor. So we're really pleased to see that.
Even as an experienced pensions actuary, were you surprised by some of the figures modelled? For example, going part-time could lose you £200,000 in retirement savings. These are big figures, aren't they?
They are big figures. They're obviously based on an average person who won't be right for a lot of people. But the point really is to show that these are big figures, and they're especially big figures the earlier in your career that happens. And the one really that shocked me the most was if you start a pension at 35 rather than 25, you could be looking at a vastly lower pot. The example that we give, it shows starting a pension at 25 might give a pot of, say, 800,000 at retirement. If you start that at 35, that's more like 500,000 at retirement, so 40% less for those 10 years. And we've got 4.25 million people in the UK that are working self-employed, and many of them may be in this category where they're not being defaulted into a pension like a lot of the employed workforce is. And I feel like I see a lot of people speaking up for some of the other pensions gaps. It might be because of how LinkedIn algorithms work for me or whatever, but I feel like I see things in the market already about the impacts of people going part-time, people taking parental leave. But I don't see as much of people speaking up for these self-employed people. And it's hard to navigate there's not an off-the-shelf product that these people can sign up to. And I just think there's more as an industry we could do to make it easier for self-employed people to choose a product and help them to pay into that pension and have more adequate retirement savings.
Yeah, and is that your mission now with this research, to raise awareness amongst that group specifically? What else are you hoping to achieve with it?
So certainly want to speak up a bit more on behalf of the self-employed people. The research, we see it as just the beginning. Like, I've just got a call this morning actually with the rest of the working party where we're talking about the next steps, and really we see that as the first stage has been about the data, about some numbers and trying to understand the impact. The second stage is going to be trying to look at the humans behind that data and try and bring a more human element to the stories, and we're working with Ipsos to kind of get that deeper understanding of people outside the real life stories that sit behind these data, and then looking to use the two together to engage not only individuals. I think it'll only ever go so far with individuals, but more the employers and the government on some of the next steps and the recommendations that we set out in the report.
Yeah, and is it a challenge to want people to think more about their pensions in relation to life milestones? I mean, people sort of just go about their lives, don't they? Getting married, having children, getting divorced, things like that. Is it a challenge, therefore, to get them to think in that way and the impact of those decisions on their pensions?
Great question. Yeah, absolutely. I think with the best will in the world, we will only ever engage people in this so far, especially when retirement seems a long way away for some people. For me, I think it's a lot about engaging employers and the government to think really sensibly about the defaults that already exist for these people. So, for example, someone going part-time, the default is generally that their pension contributions are prorated. Is that right? Is that the right default for everyone? Should that be more of an active decision? And I think trying to think about making these decisions on behalf of people is really where we need to be having these conversations.
What else would you like to see done to sort of raise awareness? You talked there about, calling on the government to raise awareness. What else can be done to get the message out?
I think just more support for people, more personal impact statements about, this is the financial implication of that decision you're going to make to go on leave, go part-time, and then engaging with some kind of outside pension organisations. So one of the ones we've been talking about is engaging with the National Childbirth Trust to, when they're having conversations with people when they're going on leave to have children, having a conversation to say, and also think about your pension. This is how you do that, and not just doing it once, doing it in several different times.
Yeah, fantastic. And Polly, you're clearly passionate about pensions. What led you into this area of expertise?
Thanks. Yeah, I am very passionate. I mean, if we go to the story while we're here, it's I don't think many people probably choose it as a career path. I ended up doing temping at Kodak for a few weeks that turned into 2 years, and then decided I want to be an actuary from that. But I think generally pensions are so important. They get labelled as boring, but as soon as retirement starts to come into view, they're anything but boring. I was in a cafe the other day with my 4-year-old daughter after her first morning at school, and found ourselves in a cafe surrounded by a lot of retired people, and I heard 2 separate conversations of people talking about their pensions. And I think there becomes a certain point in life where where it becomes really topical. But the big thing that we wanted to get out in the report, try and support people with, is just the point of not having regrets. So, sometimes these decisions are really hard. People can't say afford to pay more into their pension at a particular point, but the whole point is just having an active, conscious decision about that, rather than saying later, oh, I wish I'd done more I wish I knew more earlier on.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Polly, for that, and for all of your insights into what is clearly a really important issue impacting lots and lots of people. Thanks so much.
Brilliant, Jon. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now it's time to meet a fellow member. Alex Martin is a sustainability actuary who volunteers for the IFOA in several ways, including as features editor for the Actuary magazine. So Alex, welcome. You're here as the subject of our Meet the Member slot, which is a chance for you to share some insights into your role and what drives you, and for our audience to understand a bit more about the different roles that actuaries work in. So thanks for joining us. I guess a good place to start is with you introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what your job is.
Of course, and thank you very much for having me. I'm honoured to be in one of the early podcasts that we're doing as part of this new series. I am working at EY, and I work in sustainability. So a lot of what I do on a day-to-day basis is trying to help insurers tackle the question of, are we going to meet net zero? And how are we going to meet net zero? And those are questions being asked across every industry and every government. And even on an individual level, we're asking those questions. And it's my luck to be able to do that with large financial organizations. And insurance specifically is an industry where people really care about the future. It's an industry all about helping people at times when they're at their worst. And so it's full of caring people who just really want to do something good. So I have a really, really lovely job in that aspect. I get to help people who want to be helped.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And one of the questions that often comes up, I find, is why somebody becomes an actuary. What led you into the profession?
I fell into it. It wasn't my intention leaving university to go and decide to be an actuary. I had to move in with my wife's parents and her father happened to work at Aviva all them years ago. And he said, there's a grad scheme, Alex. I know you're looking for a job. Why don't you apply? I didn't even know what an actuary was at this point. So I applied and I researched a little bit and I found out it was quite mathsy. Well, I've just done a maths degree and I found out that it was a bit economics. It was quite interested in economics and it was a reasonable working conditions. And so I thought I'll give it a punt. So I did, and I got on the grad scheme and kind of didn't look back really. Absolutely fell in love with it from the first week.
And it's delivered on all of those things, is it? You know, all those things that you thought appealed to you, it's come through. Yeah,
still very interesting. It's still a reasonable work-life balance. It's still mathsy and economicsy. And it surprises me regularly that it allows for so much flexibility that I hadn't expected, and that has been a real joy.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And you talked about specialising in sustainability and net zero at EY. There's obviously hugely topical right now and areas of that are growing rapidly in terms of interest. Why did you choose to specialise in sustainability specifically? Was there a moral or conscious decision to that? Is it something you were passionate about, or did you sort of just find yourself there?
That was more of a choice than it was falling into actuarial in the first place. And it came about because I felt that as you read the news, as you read books, and the kind of books I was interested in were wildlife, biology, landscape books, environmental books anyway, and you could see the world was changing. And it felt like not necessarily that I could go and change it, but certainly that I wanted to be part of the group of people that were working to make it better. And over time, given that that was my outlook, I found that when things related to sustainability came up, I'd jump on them. And the first few times I was very much out of my comfort zone, but it snowballed until I realized that actually I was working in sustainability, and it's quite an exciting area to work in because it's all new. Every day it's new. There's another piece of regulation that comes out. There's another way of thinking about a concept. None of us have done this before. We've all looked at profit over companies for the last 120, 150 years. We've looked at insurance for hundreds of years, but we've not really looked at sustainability like this ever before. So it's really new, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, and I guess, part of this segment is about exploring the different roles that actuaries can go into and the breadth of that. Similarly, sustainability touches every industry, every sector, every business, every part of the world as well, right? So I guess it gives you the opportunity to go into anywhere, really.
Yeah, it's like learning a new language. It's like imagine joining an insurer that's Spanish and having to learn Spanish to work there. And then all of a sudden you realise, actually, I can speak Spanish. I can use that in so many other ways, whether it's in my life, whether it's in volunteering, whether it's in other organisations. It is a whole new lexicon and a whole new set of metrics and set of ways of thinking, really, actually.
Are you an optimist around our sustainability journey? Are you, in particular, I guess, around climate change? Are you an optimist? Where do you stand on that?
I am an optimist, and I think you have to be an optimist to do it. I think that, especially if you work in it, you see reports in the news coming out on a regular basis that the Earth is trending in a not positive light. We're missing targets left, right and centre. But if that's all you saw, you couldn't keep going. That would be too hard. I'm not that strong. However, if you can look for it, you can find a lot of positive news out there as well. So this year will be the shutting down of the last coal fire station in the UK. That's this year we've done it. We used to be massively reliant on coal. We think back to miner strikes in the 80s because of the reliance on this country on coal, and now it's gone. And livelihoods change, and there is a lot of change that comes out the back of that, and we've got to make sure that we do a right job by all those people for whom climate change will affect. But when you look at the planet and you think, actually, we are making massive strides in this stuff, the rate at which the cost of solar panels is falling is tremendous. Air source heat pumps are now being installed as standard in a lot of new build housing estates. There is a huge, huge path that we need to walk down, but we are actually starting to walk down it now. And that feels, compared to what it felt like 5 years ago even, it feels like a really big step forward that we've taken.
And actuaries are right at the heart of that journey?
I think so, because I think if you want to be, you can, as an actuary, really get to the most important heart of it, which is understanding all about the risks and how to manage those, because that's what we actuaries do, right? That's how I've always seen it, is an actuary is just a person who knows a lot about risk and climate change or nature loss as well, link that in there. But sustainability generally is a big risk for us. If you're investing in a 20, 30, 40 year time horizon and you're investing in assets around the world on behalf of pension schemes or things like that, well, actually the world's going to look different in that time. There are huge risks to how that can move. And so being an actuary allows you to really get into understanding those risks in a really meaningful way.
Yeah, you talked a little bit earlier about some of the appeal of being an actuary when you join the profession, and you talked there about some of the places it can take you and the crucial areas that you're involved with. What's the best part of your job? What's the best thing about it?
For me, I love the feeling that we are forging new ground. And that's what I get to do in my particular part of insurance. I get to feel that almost on a daily basis, we are working things out for the first time. We're not doing the same process for the 77th time. We're not reporting the same numbers for the 99th time. We are trying to work out from first principles how on earth we meet this net zero challenge. And it's a big challenge. And that sense of being part of a membership and a community of like-minded individuals, some of the brightest people in our profession, are all thinking, how on earth do we do this? What can we do? That's just really exciting on a daily basis.
Yeah, fantastic. Outside of your role with EY, you also volunteer as features editor for the Actuary magazine, which you've done for about 3 years now, I think. Tell us about that, what it entails, why it's important to you.
I love it. I come into this podcast having just left the House of Lords interviewing Lord Davies of Brixton. I wouldn't get to do that in my day job. So there's really fun things where I get to go and interview people who I really respect and really look up to. And I get to ask them, will you speak to me for an hour? That's the best part of what I do as a features editor. But that's only a fraction of what we do. I get to work with cutting edge members of the profession to get them to write what they're doing in the article. We get to find out what the industry is doing. It's like having a finger on the pulse of the industry. People are really excited to share their new ideas when they have them. And I get to be the person that allows that to happen. I find that incredibly rewarding. And it doesn't really cost that much either. It's not too much time to spend on it. And a lot of the time it's very interesting. So why wouldn't I be a features editor?
Great sentiment. And you do other volunteering roles as well?
Yep. At the moment, we are organising the IFOA's first Sustainable Investments Conference. I'm helping, again, this like-minded bunch of progressive sustainability actuaries put this thing on. And we're hoping that will be free to all the members. So that's a great thing to be involved in. I've worked with the Biodiversity Working Group in the past and other bits and pieces when they come up. Really, it's all part of putting yourself into this community of people. And that's the really nice thing about it. And that's one of the biggest pulls, is that the IFOA is a great big community of people who are all intelligent and driven to change things. And that is a very exciting place to be, and it's a very collegiate place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing those insights into your world of work and your role and your volunteering. Why don't we end with something a little bit more personal? Tell us something about yourself outside of work, perhaps, interests.
Yeah, of course. I've just got quail. I'm now a big supporter of people having quail in their gardens. They are cute, adorable little birds that give you eggs every day and don't need much room. My garden is a postage stamp, but we've still got room for quail. So I thought I'd just say a word for people who want to keep quail.
I like that. Thanks so much, Alex. That's brilliant insights into your role and what it means to you to be an actuary and where it can take you, in terms of your career. So thanks so much for sharing that with us.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.
Well, thank you for tuning in to the first edition of our new podcast from the Actuary, produced on behalf of the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries, the IFOA. Thank you also to all of our guests for taking part in this first episode, and I hope you will join us soon for our next podcast coming out after the November-December issue of the magazine, and look forward to seeing you then.
This podcast is sponsored by Milliman. As one of the world's largest actuarial and consulting firms, Milliman's work is vital to solving the challenges faced by our clients, society, and the world. Through actuarial, risk management, and related technology and data solutions, we help companies navigate the complex health, finance, and insurance landscape. Because the future demands a different kind of thinking from a different kind of company. To learn more, visit milliman.com